Today we are going to answer a big question. Are MMOs getting more popular these days? I've made some interesting observations and Josh Strife Hayes made a video called Are MMOs Growing Again? And yeah, I have my own opinions and experiences, and let's see what Josh has to say about this. And if you guys are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. And yeah, let's check this one out.
In the past few months, the MMORPG genre has experienced somewhat of a renaissance. The status quo has been shaken up and the dominance of the old guard is being challenged. New studios are bringing out new games, new players are flooding in.
Ashes of Creations, New World, Blue Protocol and many more.
Players are questioning long-held beliefs about game design. Is the MMO about to have a rebirth within the gaming landscape?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes.
That's a nice cup.
MMORPG is a fantastic genre with millions of players around the world. Players enjoy the mechanics of the MMO, creating a character, leveling dungeons, raiding, leveling up your skills and having your own adventure online. And yet many people have been saying since around 2016 the genre has been going downhill. Is that about to change? Was it true at all? Let's have a look at the state of the genre as it is right now and see if we're going through somewhat of an MMO renaissance.
Before we begin, if you want to support the channel for free, you can like the video or sub for more MMO stuff, ring the bell for all the future notifications, and a special thank you to all those who support via Patreon or Twitch.
Those are many Patreons, what the heck?
For now, let's begin.
I need to set up a Patreon, I don't have one yet.
MMORPG YouTuber The Lazy Peon put out the excellent video The Absolute State of the MMORPG.
Okay, I will probably also react and check this one out. The absolute state of the MMORPG genre. How did I actually miss that? I think I'm actually subscribed to the Lazy Peon. At least it's always on my homepage, like, because I also watch the videos of the Lazy Peon quite a lot. He does some cool videos as well.
Genre. In the video, he laments the financial support that's been shown to other genres such as battle royales and first-person shooters, while the MMO has sadly been left behind. But why is this? Well, back in
because there are too few events and stuff and championships.
Ultima Online. Then 2 years later, in 1999,
like companies need to push this more out, like freaking competition events and stuff.
The MMORPG had two franchise titans.
Like what I'm missing a lot in the MMO genre. Like, you have this for, like, shooting games a lot, right? Like, where you have, like, freaking championships, like, tournaments and stuff. And, like, the gaming companies, they will have, like... You have even that for, like, freaking StarCraft 2, right? But for MMO games, you don't have such a thing. Where, like, on TV or, like, on... Like, big gaming companies will make, like, a freaking tournament. And people can, like, participate and, like, win a prize and stuff. Like, there's not so much hype for that, sadly. And it's just like for shooting and strategy games, but let's hope in the future this will change.
And EverQuest and Ultima actually remained surprisingly close to each other in popularity for many years. Then along came Acheron's Call to challenge them both, and while never taking the crown, it did extremely well. Then more games arrived and the MMORPG genre had a healthy, real-world gaming meta. No one game dominated. No one style was vastly superior. The game selection was smaller than today, but the player base was stable between all of them. Then came the MMORPG boom. World of Warcraft, RuneScape, Guild Wars, Anarchy Online,
World of Warcraft,
Ragnarok
when it
Online,
launched,
Final Fantasy
holy
11,
shit.
Eve, Toontown Online, Lineage 2, Second Life, City of Heroes. The MMORPG gold rush had begun.
Companies knew there was money to be made in the MMORPG landscape,
but soon also microtransactions followed.
The design structure wasn't known. Fantasy or sci-fi? Action combat or tab target combat? Player versus player or player versus environment?
Yeah, but that's what makes what he just says. That's what makes MMO so beautiful in my experience. Like, if you have a game that like merges multiple genre in one, you have like the adventure aspect, you have the RPG aspect. Sometimes you have like even freaking mini games, like parkour and stuff in certain games, like Final Fantasy 14, for example. Like you can go to the gold source and do freaking parkour and stuff. Like you can do like leap of faith and shit. Like I think that's actually so cool that you have like multiple sub genres in a way in a like main genre, right? Like because MMO games have usually like multiple sub genres, and I think that's so freaking cool and fun. And it keeps the game longer interesting, in my opinion. Because if you always do the same thing, you maybe get burnt out. But if you have like other aspects in a certain game, that's a good thing for the game. And that keeps the player base pretty active.
The meta of the MMORPG design hadn't yet been solved, and this meant there was lovely creative chaos. When there is no structure for how to design something for the biggest financial game, then creative people just throw multiple ideas out and see what works. You have to take the risk when there's no blueprint to copy, and it's this risk that leads to fantastic, interesting, creative situations. We don't know what we're going to get. Something might work. It's the same as when an MMORPG releases a new patch or a new dungeon or a new update. Players don't know what works. We don't know what the best item to use is. We
have to figure this out by trying, I guess.
Lovely chaos
and theory crafting.
This beauty of the unknown that allows us to be so creative. It's taking the risks that gives us the creative rewards.
Oh, I have something funny to say about that, and this was actually with WoW Retail, sort of like that. Like, wasn't it like that? Because I saw some tier lists of like certain classes, like class specs being higher in a tier than another one DPS wise, and then several weeks later it got updated, and like some that were at like the bottom were suddenly at the top and stuff. And no patch came or anything. It was just several weeks of gameplay were happening, and then suddenly like tier lists started to change. You see suddenly B tier and A tier and stuff, or you see A tier move to S tier. Like, I actually saw this in WoW Retail. Like when first like Shadowlands came, for example, like the tier list changed afterwards, just like several weeks later.
Everyone had been thrown into chaos. Companies didn't know what to design, and the meta of the MMO design hadn't yet been solved. This gave us so many different games.
The early to mid era of the MMORPG was similar to the early to mid era of the mobile phone. Companies were throwing some crazy designs at the wall and seeing what worked, what the public
mobile
would actually
gaming.
respond well
You're so
to.
restricted, that's why I don't like mobile gaming.
Mid 2000s like I was, you'll probably remember everyone having a different mobile phone with a different operating system and a different charging cable. It was a wild time for design. And these crazy wild situations are absolute breeding grounds for creativity.
Some look like
when
freaking
no one knows what will work,
PSPs
or when
and
you've
stuff.
got multiple styles all working equally well, people are driven to find unique solutions, ideas, and styles. It's a designer's paradise when the correct choice, financially, isn't known. And then, the risks they take start to pay off. But one paid off more than the others. World of Warcraft.
Yes.
Slowly, one MMO emerged as the king and began to make all the money. Now, from the
Holy shit, how is it
the
falling?
emergence
Like, look
of a
at this
single
curve.
dominating
Holy
system
shit.
means one thing: the clones are coming. When the audience is young and the design space is fresh,
Runes
risk
of
is the
Magic.
best
Holy
business
shit, that
strategy,
looks like
because the
World
chance
of
success is
Warcraft
equal
copy
roughly
paste.
everywhere. But when the audience is known, risk becomes a terrible tactic. If you want to make guaranteed money, you'll just copy what works. With Warcraft
No, you need to be
dominating and
innovative as
EverQuest
well.
creeping ahead of Ultima, the standard was being set. If you were a company making an MMO, you likely wanted a third-person fantasy game with classes, tab target combat, and grind.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Those games here that we are seeing here on this list, I don't recognize a single one of those. And I know why, because they couldn't get successful, because they were just copy-paste games. Like, if you want to get big with a game, like, you don't just use what works. You need to be innovative. You need to come up with a brand new idea, something that's not on the market, something that will overwhelm people with fun and excitement. Because this is just copy-paste and no success.
Game with classes, tab target combat, and grindy gameplay with endgame dungeons and raids as your
What is
focus.
this? I've
It
never
was
seen
proven
those
to
games.
work. The formula had been found.
One of the worst things that can happen to a creative space is the design within it becoming solved. Once you know the best set of steps to take to achieve a certain goal, you'd be a fool not to take them. In Warhammer 40k, if a certain army becomes all-powerful and all-dominant, you'd be an idiot not to play the army.
Yeah.
In Magic the Gathering, if one deck became unbeatable, you'd want to play the deck.
Yeah,
In
you will
any
try everything to
MMORPG,
have it.
Once the meta is known, how to play your class, you play your class in that way. It takes away the freedom and the creativity, and designing a game is no different. Once companies knew how to build an MMORPG for the maximum return on investment, everyone did that. If your goal is victory or profit, you'd be a fool not to follow the meta.
Yeah.
This kills design. I'm not blaming World of Warcraft specifically for homogenizing the genre. If it hadn't been that one, another game would have. It just happened to
Maybe.
be the game that found
yeah,
the specific
it could have
combination
been,
of
yeah.
franchise recognition and design style that appealed to a lot of people. And now designers knew that taking risks wasn't worth it. Risking success in a chaotic landscape with everyone else also risking is potentially lucrative. Risking when you've already got a guaranteed method of success is not appealing to most companies. Over the next few years, we did indeed get some new MMOs, but most came and then went. Wildstar, The Secret World, The Matrix Online, Shadowbane, Asheron's Call 2, Star Wars Galaxies, The Lord of the Rings Online. Some of these games found minor levels of success, most of them shut down. The MMORPG was an extremely expensive genre to make, and since the majority of the player base was focused on
the worlds are so big. I think the reason why they are so expensive, because if you look at, for example, Final Fantasy XIV, how many quests you have, like even side quests. And in World of Warcraft, this is also the case. Like, not only do you have to create like a huge world, add all those structures, you have to add like so many quest lines and quests because it's a MMO. There will be a lot of players and some will subscribe for like maybe years and stuff, especially if you have like a subscription based game, right? Like New World doesn't have that, and that's what I'm worried about New World, for example. Like, we don't know how long New World will be successful because of their monetization, because you just buy the game basically. Like the way it's monetized. You buy the game and that's it. And there are like microtransactions. But I don't think the income from microtransactions will be enough to keep the game like alive for many, many years, right? Like, for example, with WoW. Because if a company has a subscription and you pay every month, let's say $14 or so for this game, they can easily add every half year or every year like a new expansion or patch. And sometimes they can still sell those and you still have the subscription. Like, let's say a new expansion comes out, $30, you buy that one, you still subscribe for like maybe like another 6 months or so or longer. But if you have a game that you just buy once for like, let's say $50, $60, and then you don't have like a subscription, yeah, I don't know how long this game will last. And I feel like that's something that a lot of MMOs had issues with. Like some that had like a minor success, they didn't have a subscription. And people just bought the game, and then they did all the content possible, and they ran out of content, and the company couldn't afford to upgrade the game further. And even if they had microtransactions, maybe this wasn't enough.
Relatively low chance of giving a decent return on investment. You were unlikely to steal another game's players. The major MMORPGs that did manage to rise in power were all offering
and people already beat the game anyway.
RuneScape didn't require a download, Guild Wars 2 was a buy once play forever game, or they were supported by huge franchises. The Elder Scrolls Online had Skyrim, Final Fantasy XIV had Final Fantasy, and the genre settled into this stable position for a while. The 5 major MMORPGs, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, The Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars 2, and RuneScape were the titans of the genre, with several smaller but still successful games floating around the edge. Star Wars, The Old Republic, Neverwinter, Dungeons & Dragons Online, Lord of the Rings Online, Terra, and others sitting off to the sidelines. The gold rush, at least in the MMORPG design space, was finished, and plucky young designers moved on to different, less risky genres. If you're a game development company, at this point in time, you don't want to make an MMORPG. They're incredibly expensive, have a really long development time, and a very, very low chance of actually making any profit. Back when the gold rush was happening and people didn't know what would make money, it was worth it. But the research had been done, the R&D was finished, and people had discovered that a successful MMORPG took
Plus, it's saturated.
Of money to make. That gold rush was now happening in other games, battle royales, the mobile gaming market.
Yeah, Call of Duty games, for example.
And billions of dollars.
Fortnite came.
The MMORPG genre had been solved design-wise. And that gold rush was over. Right up until it started again.
By gold rush, I mean the moment companies realised there's an excessive amount of money to be made, and over the last 6 months in the MMO world, we've seen some major movements from big companies, and some interesting additions from smaller ones. If a game is solved, there's no point making any different moves, like tic-tac-toe. Once the winning combination is known, just copy it. And this is true right up until the winning combination stops winning. World of Warcraft is falling. Final Fantasy XIV is raising. And this switch in power is a symptom of a major new era in the MMO world. Not every single MMO player wants to play a single game forever. They want to play them until they stop having fun and then move on to another one. Variety becomes the spice of life. Players want new experiences, and for the last few years,
more
this has meant
features.
players have cycled between the top 5 MMOs, occasionally trying the smaller ones. But now we seem to be reaching a player boredom boiling point. Every MMO player has tried all the top games. Most of them have tried the smaller games, and the companies are realizing the player base wants something new and are actually serious about playing a new game. Amazon are moving in with New World to capture the casual PvP crowd. Mortal Online 2 wants the
I love it so
hardcore
much
PvP players.
for the
RuneScape
PvP
Mobile
aspect.
wants the mobile market. Ashes
Like, the reason why I actually pre-ordered New World was I'm like missing PvP in an MMO. I used to play like a lot of Elder Scrolls Online. I used to focus mostly on PvP there, and I had such a great time back then. But they nerfed so much in PvP, and you no longer can like solo PvP as well and as efficient as you used to back in the day. And like certain skills take now way longer than they used to, because you can no longer animation cancel and stuff. But I loved PvP in Elder Scrolls Online, and now when I checked out New World, I jumped on like several people's streams, like for example Fangrush's New World stream. I also checked out Asmongold streaming New World, and like the way PvP looks in New World, like I think that's gonna be really interesting. I will give it a shot for sure, and I'm wondering where like Ashes of Creation will be and how PvP is there. I'm so curious, because I'm a hybrid between PvE content and PvP content, because I enjoy both aspects of an MMO.
of Creation is aiming to recreate that classic RPG feel. Bless Online has just released.
Yeah,
League of
New
Legends
World Modern
is making an MMO.
and
Star
Ash Creation
Citizen is
Classic.
probably releasing another pre-release ship to make more money. It may one day exist, it may not. Who
Holy
knows?
The early
shit!
days of the MMORPG.
What the heck? Did I see this correct? Wait. So they are selling freaking spaceships for over $100, and this one is over $1,000. Holy shit! That's pay to win right there.
Who knows?
The early days
OMG.
of the MMORPG boom
would
were
buy
brought
that?
about because companies realized this new genre, the MMO, had an untapped player base and there was a lot of money to be made. Companies took risks, several companies failed, a few succeeded, and the early days were won by EverQuest, Ultima Online,
EverQuest.
Asheron's Call, World of Warcraft, RuneScape, Guild Wars. These games rose to the surface, some of them kept going for years and years after. The risk was just too big to take now. If you're a new company,
There are too many
making an
big
MMO
MMOs.
would likely bankrupt you. So the MMO
Unless you have
stepped
an
back,
innovation, something
games
that nobody
companies
has.
enjoyed making vast amounts of profits, and players slowly became bored. The genre stagnated because it was too risky for any new company to enter.
And only the old
This,
ones remained.
ironically, made it worth entering. Because players wanted a new game. They hadn't had a new game, a new good game, in a hell of a long time. And suddenly, the money was there to be made again. The player base were crying out for a new game, and the risk suddenly became worth the reward. A healthy, unsolved meta is vital
there
to
he
the
is.
long-term success
Just
of
plays,
anything competitive
Paladin.
or creative. EverQuest and Ultimate were so close for so many years, and this meant they both focused on being the best versions of themselves because something about them was appealing. They didn't need to follow a known formula and become gentrified. Competition leads to innovation, invention, and creation. Once Warcraft began to dominate, design became do what works and copy that, not do what we're good at or create something new. Now, with Warcraft failing, suddenly the top 5 MMOs are actually leveling out again, and this is forcing them to all focus on what they are specifically good at, not just copying a known formula, because the formula isn't working as well as it used to. We have returned to the point where risk is worth it.
Yeah, and to be honest, when you look at like Final Fantasy XIV, you see this also here in this footage here. Like if you look at World of Warcraft combat and design and everything, and like Final Fantasy XIV, there's a clear difference. Like they are not copied of each other, or let's say Final Fantasy XIV that came later is not copied like a copy paste of World of Warcraft, and that's probably one of the reasons why Final Fantasy XIV is getting so popular these days, because it's something unique. There aren't too many MMOs like that. Like I feel like when I look at like combat, for example, like BDO and Final Fantasy XIV are more close than, for example, World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV in combat, I would say, right? Like the way stuff works. But what I love so much about Final Fantasy XIV, and that's exactly what I mentioned earlier, that there are like multiple sub-genre in Final Fantasy XIV, because you have like not only a lot of mini games and a lot of like adventure mode with like long freaking cinematics and like so many quests that are like very well designed in comparison to World of Warcraft, for example, where you get like a big text. You have to read through that, but you actually don't read through that. You just look at the objective and then you just accept. Like that's how you quest, or like most people quest in WoW. Where here you get like freaking Twitter posts, like quest dialogues, like you get like sentence by sentence shown like 4 or 5 times, and then you accept the quest and you know what's like happening, and you get like cool cinematics and stuff. But I would say Final Fantasy XIV is very unique. I can't think of any game that's like alike. Maybe for like animations and like combat movements, like I said, like visually it looks a bit like BDO, but other than that, I don't know any game that's too similar to that.
Renaissance means rebirth, revitalization, or a renewed interest in something. It can be a slow burn change or a dramatic shift. In most cases, it's a combination of both. In the MMORPG genre, it's the slow creeping boredom caused by multiple years of industry dominance and solved gameplay design causing the player base to wish for something new, combined with a sudden shift in the player base away from Warcraft and toward other games such as Final Fantasy, which is
they want to take a fresh breath, like you want some fresh air.
The gold rush is here again. The risks are worth it.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft solved MMO design for many years. As far as player counts go, clones were made to emulate the success, and a lucky few managed to survive. The genre became too much of a risk to enter. Battle Royale games made more money for less risk. Mobile gaming was far more profitable. But now the player base is bored, the power has shifted, and the companies have realised while mobile gaming is still the best choice financially, the MMORPG genre isn't completely done. It's not as solved as they thought. Companies, once again, are taking risks.
Yeah.
I have long believed the last year has been the start of a new golden age for the MMORPG, but what do you think? Are we seeing the start of a renaissance, or will these new games fade into
I have also
obscurity
some
like
stuff
so
to
many
say after
before them,
this.
and will we sit back into the boring status quo? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and
That's
Twitch.
an accomplishment right here, guys. So many patrons. Holy
£1
shit.
a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, and our Discord. And as always, have a great day.
You too, Josh. Wow, this was really interesting. And yeah, my opinion on that is, and that's something I've actually noticed while I was playing Final Fantasy XIV. So everyone is saying like Final Fantasy XIV is only growing thanks to the WoW, like the World of Warcraft refugees and people leaving World of Warcraft and starting to play Final Fantasy XIV. But that's actually not true. So these days I've been leveling multiple new jobs. I've been leveling like my Black Mage that I unlocked. I picked up Red Mage yesterday, and like I ended up quite often in group with like other sprouts, and sometimes when someone went AFK or we wiped unfortunately or something, like sometimes I would like start just casual chatting with like my group mates and stuff, or I would like meet new players and maybe they had like issues with fates and I would like help them out because they kept dying or something. And like some of them actually had a surprising response when I asked them, oh, you also came from WoW, are you also a WoW refugee or something? Like some said, no, I was playing this and that game. Like even met like yesterday a dude that was playing like freaking adventure games and stuff, and he played survival games. So someone from like adventure and survival genre gets into Final Fantasy XIV. And the other day I met someone that's like heavy into shooting games and he wanted to try out an MMO. So there are definitely a lot of people picking up MMO games and trying them that are not from the genre. And that's exactly why I believe that there's some second like so-called gold rush happening here with MMOs. And we also have to look at this world now, how things are socially, because we have like freaking social distancing, so people go out less. Here in Germany I have to get freaking tested or something if I want to eat at a restaurant or go to the movies. So a lot of people are now at home, they don't go out as much, and MMO games are social games. Like you can be at home but still be social, because you can meet your friends online and play with them, you can hang out, you can even visit each other's home. Like some games have housing, like Final Fantasy XIV has housing, Elder Scrolls Online has housing, and some other MMOs. So people, instead of meeting in real life, are now meeting in MMOs, and social distancing is also promoting MMO games a lot. And because like there are a lot of repetitive games, and I feel like shooting games at some point, depending on what sort of games you're playing, can also become repetitive in some strategy games. So you will see sometimes people get tired of a genre and they will try out MMOs. And because MMOs are so huge and have like sub-genres and stuff within them, I feel like some people feel quite at home at MMOs as well, and they continue playing them. So yeah, that's my take on this, and if you guys are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content, and I would also really appreciate if you like this video. This will help out with the YouTube algorithm, and please stay all safe and healthy, and I will see you guys next time.